Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Alex Hilton. I'm the Chief Exec of the Cloud Industry Forum. I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do, but I kind of wanted to start off with, I guess, a sort of a more practical personal example as well. So firstly, I run an industry body, okay, the Cloud Industry Forum. We talk about advocacy and all the good things that we see going on in the cloud world. So you're going to expect me to say good things about cloud, I guess. But a practical viewpoint around this. So I run a small business. I dare say there's some of you out there who also run small businesses. When I joined the organization 2 years ago, believe it or not, the Cloud Industry Forum was everything was on premise. All the stuff was stored on servers, all the file print servers, all the application servers and so forth. It was all done on site. And it was backed up, and in fact, one of the servers had a terabyte of storage on there, and it was at 99.9% capacity, I promise you. And it wasn't very well backed up, and so on and so on. So I thought, okay, probably one of the first things we need to do is the whole, eat your own dog food, drink your own champagne, whatever language you choose here, we should probably get behind this in a bigger way. And that's exactly what we've done. It was a pretty simple thing to do because actually, as I said, we're a small business. So nowadays I have a laptop, we're a not-for-profit, so it's a house brick type of thing, not one of these little trendy things. It sits in the office and it never undocks itself from my desk unless I go to a meeting room somewhere inside the office. I have a PC that I leave at home, and when I travel around, I take my little tablet with me, whatever technology you choose. This happens to be a Windows-based one. And that's my cloud experience now, and it's so simple. It's so simple because that brings to me the flexibility, the agility, the security, all of those cloud messages that we espouse and talk about all the time. But for me, it's very real. Now, the thing that was probably the biggest challenge for us as a business to make that change on was the cultural one. And I loved Claire's pictures that she showed up there. We have a lawyer in our business who's a little bit like that, sort of the clutter culture type of environment. Got to keep everything for 7 years. And there are certain regulatory requirements, of course, within that. But you know what? The cultural change has been the biggest one that we've had to move to. We've had people who've been in our business. We've been going 30 years as a business. We've had people who've been in the business for quite a long time. And making that cultural change has been the biggest challenge. But I think we're there now. But I just kind of wanted to share that personal story with you in terms of how the cloud has really manifested and made a difference to our business in terms of the way that we work. As much as anything else, I don't get any lower back pain now carrying that big laptop around when I come up to London on the train anymore. So that's got to be a benefit. Okay, a little bit about us. If you haven't heard of the Cloud Industry Forum, some of this stuff I've touched on. We're an industry body. We have quite a large membership, which I'll share with you in a minute, but the essence of what we do is talking about advocacy of cloud computing. We've been doing this for as a business, about 5-6 years now. I've only been directly within the business for a couple, but I've been on the board for longer than that. We develop a load of different resources. We produce white papers. We do research based upon what's happening in the UK, talking about adoption rates and changes and things, bless you, things that are going on within the industry. That was quite an impressive sneeze. We also manage what we call a code of practice. Now, this is aimed at cloud service providers. Cloud service providers are people like Cobweb, people who are reselling cloud technologies themselves. They might wrap up and they might utilize other third-party technologies, such as Microsoft or IBM or whoever it happens to be. But we have developed this code of practice, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment, which is aimed at instilling confidence and trust in the industry. And right along the line there, which looks like it's being crossed out, but we are imminently, and I mean next week, going to launch an end user, an individual membership program. So our membership programs today are aimed at the industry, okay, the organizations, Microsoft, IBM, HP, that kind of thing, Cobweb, who have recently become members. Great to have you involved. What we don't have is, we don't really kind of have a membership program that's aimed at individuals, and that's really where we're trying to drive this, but I'll tell you a little bit more right at the end on that. So some of our members on here, a few logos, many of whom I'm sure you'll recognize. There's a big one beginning with a C right in the middle there. Great that we have Cobweb on board with us now. And many of the other names I'm sure you will recognize. There's pretty household names in the technology sector. Aside of those big names that you'll see and recognize on there, there's also a lot of smaller ones, if you like, who are more niche-focused players. Now, of course, when we're out talking I'm out particularly talking as a mobile worker, as I am, to use the modern parlance, when I'm out talking to potential members or driving activities and events, what's fundamentally important is that everybody has a cloud story these days. And if you're an IT reseller of any form, if you don't have a cloud story, you don't have a story. You won't get valuations. It doesn't drive income. It doesn't drive your story. So it's really fundamental to what any organization is doing now. Okay? So the more forward-thinking ones, we believe, get involved with the work that we're doing in terms of the advocacy and support. One of the key things that we deliver every year is our research program. And I've tried to really summarize this as best I can into one slide. I've got about a 45-minute presentation that I would happily take you through, talking about our cloud industry research. So this is trying to distill that down into one slide in terms of the key summary points. Incidentally, what I'm talking about here is the research paper is available through our website. You probably can't read the URL, cloudindustryforum.org. You can go to our website and you can download that as a white paper, and you can pull all of this content out, which is about a 20-page white paper. The summary, though, based on the research that we did, and this was done towards the end of last year, so we're just in the throes of starting off the process to do the new research piece, is that in the UK, and this is UK-based research to 250 organisations varying from small businesses all the way up to enterprise organisations, and including public sector as well as, of course, private. So 78% of UK businesses are using cloud services. Probably won't come as a surprise. In fact, some of you might think, actually, that's a bit low. We're not counting, just Hotmail servers and things like that. We're talking about utilization in terms of material use of cloud services within their organization, something that is driving their technology and change within the organization. 79%, I think it's an interesting one, see cloud as an integral part of their IT strategy. Okay? So even if they're not using it right now, they certainly are planning. It's in the pipeline. It's a part of that discussion. I'm not going to stand up here and talk to you about the great benefits and wonders of cloud. Hopefully that message has kind of got through one way or another. I'll happily chat with you about that. But the essence around the fact that people are now seeing that as a part of their IT strategy, I think, is fundamentally important. 72% of organizations make new deployment decisions based on the infrastructure. So they're not just doing it because smart people from Microsoft or HP or IBM or whoever the vendor is stand up and go, cloud's the way to go, guys, follow us. They're doing it based on that message, but because there is some fundamental change that is required within the organization. And one of the biggest drivers of change that we are seeing at a tactical level within the industry now is the change to Windows Server 2003. Okay? So again, the research was telling us here, 61% of organizations are still using Microsoft Windows Server 2003, which goes end of support, as I'm sure you're aware, in July this year. And indeed, if organizations haven't already made or started to make that change, they're going to be cutting it fine. It's not going to switch off, as you know, come July, but people need to be making that change and planning for that now and very quickly. Okay? So, the growth we're seeing has been great. Our expectation is, certainly with the drive around Windows Server this year, that the cloud adoption rates will exceed 90% by the end of 2015. And that's kind of our reading the tea leaves component that we hope to see within that. More specifically, the hybrid story. I'm sure you've heard the hybrid story. If you've read anything about cloud technologies, that's absolutely where we see things going in terms of the immediate to sort of mid-term. It's not a rip and replace set of activities that are going on. People have big investments, certainly in the corporate and enterprise worlds, in legacy technologies, as we call it, which may not have even fully depreciated. So frankly, you're not just going to take that out and start again because the vendors are telling you it's the right thing to do. What they're going to be doing is integrating that in, the cloud solutions in, based on that need. So hence, that's where we see the hybrid story going. Now, maybe in the years to come, and I was chatting with a customer myself just 2 days ago, who was going, well, look, everybody trusts cloud and cloud services now, don't they? Maybe a rhetorical question. But with that in mind, why would you not be all in on the cloud? Why would you not put the whole thing forward? Okay, now, his may not have been a regulated or a high-secure industry in terms of what he's doing, so there are different requirements there. Security, to that point, remains, based on our research, the top inhibitor. I'll show you a slide on that next. There is a perception versus reality piece around that one, though, as well, and I think that's an important one to highlight. Final point on here is 62% of people believe that their supplier would be serving them better if they had some kind of certification process behind that. Okay, and again, we'll touch on that more in a second. The security concerns, you're not going to be able to read the details around this, so let me summarize. Again, a question that came out of our research project. When we asked the question, at the top there says, what are the most significant concerns, if any, about adoption of cloud services in your business? And the top three that you see on there are security related. Data security, data privacy, and data sovereignty, data location. Okay? And those came out, 61, 54, 28% are saying that is an issue for us. That's something that is our biggest inhibitor, the biggest thing that will hold us back from jumping in and going all the way to get all those wonders of flexibility and nice consistent payment mechanisms and turning it up and turning it down and dynamic activity and all those great cloud benefits. However, when we asked them a little further on within the survey, how many of you have actually experienced any kind of breach of security? Only 2% said yes to that. Okay? So, yeah, there's a concern, but that doesn't necessarily follow all the way through in terms of what's actually happening out there. And I think when you look at the stuff that's been out there in terms of the fear factor around this, we talk about Snowden, we talk about NSA, we talk about GCHQ. I was at an event, we have a big legal community that we work with, a lawyer stand up, and a guy from the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, a while ago, who was talking about, all these stories about the GCHQ flying helicopters or aeroplanes over London, listening to telephone calls. It's all true. They do it, and they do it. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to be more insecure about the data, because actually that position hasn't necessarily changed. Okay? So I think from a security perspective and this whole climate of trust, what goes on there's certain key things. I'm sure if you're a customer, you look for certain ISO accreditations or standards out there, such as 27001. I think a great move by Microsoft from marketing, but also from a practicality perspective, is their announcement of achieving 27018 as a privacy standard for Azure. That's a great first step, because to my knowledge, they're the first vendor to do that. And again, that's all about driving trust and confidence to you as users, to us as users collectively. Okay? We have a code of practice. I mentioned this earlier. We aim that at cloud service providers. So again, that's something else that we try and deliver as a confidence factor directly to end users. Now, every end user is different, and every end user has a different set of priorities. We look out the building here, we see a few banks out there, so they're going to be regulated industries, thank goodness nowadays. They have certain priorities that they need to manage and attain in terms of the way they manage data, the way you handle customers, and so forth, so on and so forth. So obviously in your sector, you'll know what those obligations or regulations happen to be, and those will be things that you need to adapt to. And you adapt your cloud story based on the requirements you have out there. And it's kind of as simple as that. Now, I massively simplify that to emphasize the point, but I'm sure you get the point of where I'm trying to go with that. Now, more specifically, from our perspective, in terms of what we try and do with our code of practice, and what I would encourage you to think about is any of you who are end users, customers, is to think about how you utilize and work with your providers out there. Our code of practice that we have has this CIF certified stamp, Cloud Industry Forum certified. It's a self-certification process that cloud resellers go through. It has these three pillars, in essence, that hang off of this, which is transparency, capability, and accountability. It's not a technology standard. It's a commercial, how you go to market kind of standard. So I'll be chatting with you guys about this stuff in terms of a driver around that, because it's an important standard as far as driving confidence and trust in the marketplace. Okay. So to wrap up, the final couple of slides I have here, one was to talk about a new program that we're going to be launching very soon, which again we hope will do more things in terms of driving this sort of individual trust and confidence in cloud services. So we're launching this individual membership program, which we'll launch at the end of this week. I don't say this to sell it to you. I'm saying it because actually this is a great medium in terms of actually communicating with end users. Okay? But communicating with end users from a vendor-neutral perspective. Okay? So we're not trying to drive any particular message, any particular vendor favoritism one way or the other. It's simply just getting a generic overall view of what's going on in the industry. Now, you get views from within the media, and you can get views, of course, from vendors. Where we're trying to position this is in this sort of neutral stance around that. And we will deliver a load of research information, a load of white paper content. We have this sort of 22 steps of modules, so to speak, in terms of the delivery from inception all the way through to conclusion, and then indeed the cycle continues, of course, for delivery of cloud services. And within that, there'll be an accreditation process, so end users can go through that and they can certify to certain levels, which we hope will be something that will be, tradable, so to speak, within the marketplace as well. Okay. So enough of that. In summary, I'd love you to kind of get involved, find out more. You can follow us on our Twitter feed down there is @UK_CIF, CIF. You can download all the research papers, a lot of the stuff I've touched on, albeit very briefly. Here you can find out a little bit more about the membership programs that we offer. Great that we have Cobweb involved. Great that we have some of the other people in the room as vendors who are involved as well. And I thank you for your support. Oh, one final point I should mention. Cloud Awards. In fact, week, Wednesday, the 11th of March, just over the road at Plateau, the restaurant here out that side, I think, we're hosting our UK Cloud Awards, which is a big thing from our perspectives. Have a look at the website if you get a chance. That will be showcasing best-of-breed technologies, vendors, projects in terms of cloud delivery. So I simply say that to you in terms of, look at some of the vendors out there as well in terms of the marketplace. But there's some really clever things going on in the cloud world, and not least of which is Cobweb. Thanks, guys.
Good.